trust is going to be built faster. But still, podcasts are like the number one way to gain trust. And even just listening to someone will create that bond.
Welcome to Believe in the Leap, the show where faith meets grit and ordinary men do the unthinkable. I'm your host, Brad Parnell, entrepreneur, ultra trail runner, and believer that bold moves build bold lives. If you're tired of playing small and ready to do the unbelievable, you're in the right place. Let's go. Hey guys, welcome back to Believe in the Leap. This is the show where we talk to men who've traded comfort for calling, routine for risk, and the status quo for something far more adventurous. I'm your host, Brad Parnell, entrepreneur, family man, and your guide to doing the unbelievable. So today's guest, we have Jonathan Armbruster. Welcome, Jonathan.
Hi, thanks.
So glad to have you on the show. Jonathan is a pioneer in the podcasting world with over 20 years of experience behind the mic and behind the scenes. He's helped launch shows that now reach over 1 million listeners a month, and he's done it all while keeping his faith at the center. He's now on a mission to help kingdom-minded coaches and business owners build their platforms through podcasting without burnout or perfectionism holding them back. So his story involves a leap of faith, a bold prayer, and an unexpected push out of a 12-year job that changed everything. Guys, you are going to love this conversation. Excited to have you here. You ready to go, Mr. Jonathan?
I'm ready. Wow, that was a great introduction. I need to get that from you. Write that down. That's my new bio.
Do it, man. It's true, right? It's funny. I think us being in the kind of professional services space, we tend to always do a better job of highlighting and helping other people than ourselves, right?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. So hey, let's rewind the clock a little bit. I would love for you to take us back to your very first experience with podcasting. Like, what hooked you? And what did that moment spark inside of you?
Wow. This is going to date me, but my very first experience with a podcast was at a church that I worked with. So it was shortly after Apple made podcasts popular on the iPod, right? Who remembers the little iPods, the little shuffle button? They were glorious. But when they launched the ability to put podcasts on there and actually download them to your iPod, I mean, that was revolutionary at the time. And so we had a broadcast TV show at church, broadcast TV, like on a local channel. And we decided, okay, let's put this on a podcast. But man, those days were so much different than they are now. We had to manually update the RSS feeds every time we created them. It took me I remember after sitting there after church on Sundays, probably an hour, getting it ready to go up on the podcast. It was so ridiculous. But yeah, so podcasts were were a little bit popular, and then it kind of just dropped off, and people didn't really know a lot about them and they didn't really start gaining popularity until probably 8-10 years ago. They really started to pick back up, and they're just now getting into their prime, right? Where the market has been tested on and everything. So I went way past what you asked me, but I would say then this the second, because so that was the first time I got into one. And then the second time was at my previous employer. We decided to start some podcasts. We actually decided to start a whole network. And we started with, it was a fun podcast that we started with. It's kind of like a variety show, and we had different people on there all the time, and it was new every week. It was a ton of work, and it quickly was way too much work for our company at the time. But I just remember that it was super fun.
Yeah, man, that's incredible. I love how far your history goes back. I specifically remember getting the iPad shuffles, the little circle thing that moved, where you could just kind of run your thumb around it.
Yeah.
And having to plug it into a computer that had iTunes on it, manually moving the podcast from your computer. And I know my kids, your kids, this new generation, we've got it so darn easy. I was just driving back from a workout today and just talking to your car to say, play this. We don't even have to touch anything anymore.
Right. Yes. Yeah. It's so funny that we thought it was revolutionary, plugging this device in and having a device that we could carry around with us that had all of our music on it and podcasts on that note as well. So what's interesting is one of the stats that we look at nowadays is downloads. And we say downloads, how many downloads did your episode get? How many downloads? And people are like, so what does that even mean?
Yeah.
Because it comes back all the way from those years of you actually had to download the file from the internet and then put it onto your iPod, right? Well, nowadays it downloads instantly to your device as you're listening. So it's a lot different.
We went from like floppy disks to CD-ROMs to USB drives to, hey, just airdrop it to me or just send me a
Yeah.
link.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember thinking back in the day, I was like, we had DVDs, right? And they were troublesome and CDs. And I thought someday we'll be able to just get like a USB drive from Blockbuster and plug it in and play the movie. We skipped right over the USB, went straight to streamings, but
Thankfully, can you imagine
yes,
having to keep track of those little USBs, turn them back in when you're done with them?
it'd be awful.
I'm sure that got brought up in a boardroom once, and they're like, there's got to be a better way. If people are losing our VHS tapes and our CDs, like, how are
DVDs.
they going to keep track of tiny little thumb drives?
That's true. It's true.
So, Jonathan, I would love to know, and I think our listeners too would love to know, what was it like building a Christian marriage podcast from 0 to 1 million downloads or streams a month? And then second part of that question is, was there a moment that you knew it was working, where everything kind of clicked and you saw some cool metrics spike?
Yeah, it was interesting. Well, first of all, the hosts were just amazing people, and we really believed in these hosts, and we worked with them to really nail down their concept and the idea and like who they were. And it was easy because they kind of already knew who their audience was, and they knew who they were, and they knew what they wanted to say and how they wanted to say it, the unique way they wanted to say it, right? And so we started with them from ground zero. I mean, we didn't know what to expect, honestly. And we just started working with them, and the response from I think the audience surprised me the most. Like people, we would just get letters, I say letters, emails and comments of how the content was saving marriages, changing their lives. And that kind of drove us forward. At first, it seemed like a long road, and we were like, oh, I don't know if this is going to work. Luckily, the hosts were with us. They were doing other things for us. They were doing, events and different things. So we didn't have to rely on the podcast at first for any kind of income coming in. So we were just like, okay, we're just trying this out, keeping up the consistency. Like from day one, we never missed a week. So every week they had a new podcast coming out. So that's one thing that I harp on a lot is consistency, but I'll talk about that some other time. But so about a year in, we started to see a little bit of growth, like literally starting like from zero and like seeing, 300 people, maybe 500 people to probably around 1,000 at the end of the first year. Now think of that, like week after week, one whole year, and all you're seeing
Wow.
is 1,000 downloads, right? That's kind of like, I don't know if this is working or not.
Yeah.
But they were willing to keep going. The company wanted to keep going. We obviously saw feedback from people that they were loving it.
Mm.
And when they would go to events, we would hear so much feedback from like when they would do meet and greets, like, I love your podcast. I listened to every episode, or I found your podcast. I went back to the beginning and listened to all of the episodes. So that kind of feedback kind of fueled us to keep going and keep like tweaking and working on things. And we worked with them. Again, the hosts were amazing and would basically just do whatever we told them to. So they're very honest, vulnerable people, which is one of the keys as well. But they were also just so easy to work with. And they would just do anything that we wanted them to try. We're like, hey, we think that this would make the podcast better. Will you do that? Sure. And they were like, sure.
Yeah.
And so it was great. So then about at the end, but really at the end, in the middle of year two, towards the end was when we really just started seeing explosive growth. And we were like, oh my gosh, we're onto something here. Like it just kept growing and growing and growing. And that's kind of what I tell people. It really 2 years. You've got to give it 2 years of consistency before you start seeing some growth. But you should really pay attention to early on, and pay attention to the feedback you're getting from your audience, because that's more important than the numbers, right? If you're making an impact and achieving your personal goal, whatever the goal is for your podcast, then that's where you're going to see those wins.
Man, that's great. I just wrote down some of those words. So obviously consistency is king. Going 1 year, man. So 52 weeks, just slugging it out and putting a lot of trust in you, right? Of Jonathan being like, hey, just tell us what to do. We'll do it. Then it's like, hey, if it wins or fails, it's kind of on like, well, this is what we tried.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's incredible. So consistency, having a very honest podcast. And for feedback for them, they had the luxury, I guess, of being in a community where they met their listeners. How they got most of their feedback is when they had events. You said they would just kind of come up to them and share live audible feedback to them.
That, and they were an open book. They had a Facebook channel, Instagram. Well, they didn't have an Instagram at the beginning, so they had Facebook, and they would tell people their email right on the air. They're like, "This is our email. If you need anything, reach out to us."
Amazing.
And then same thing on Facebook. Hey, DM us, message us if you need something. So they got direct feedback because they were such an open book, and they were like, we read every one of these emails, and so people would they would tell them their issues, but they would also write in and tell them, hey, this is really helping me. This is really working for me. So I think that's important too, like to give people an opportunity other than, especially when you're podcasting, there's not a comment section right at the bottom of a podcast. Well, there is comments, but it's not the same as like, it's reviews. It's not a comment. So
Yeah.
it's different, right? And so it's important to give people an avenue to give you feedback, because you want that feedback's important and will drive your show one way or another. Like they might be like, this is terrible. Like, okay, well, what can I do to fix it? How can what can I really, you have a podcast because you need to have a podcast because you want to give something to your audience.
Yeah.
Right. And come at it from a place where you want to give them something, and then base your feedback on that. Am I solving this problem for you? Am I giving you something that you feel is valuable, that you can grow from, that you can learn from? Because if they don't feel like they're getting something from you, they're not going to come back. There's no reason for them to keep listening if they don't feel like they're getting something. And it sounds selfish, but I mean, honestly, who would listen to a podcast for no reason? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. It's kind of that age old, like, what's in it for me, right? Like at the end of the day,
Yeah.
if we're getting people's attention, which is the hardest thing to get, if you're getting people's attention, you've got to quickly answer that question like, hey, what's in it for my audience, for my viewers, for my subscribers? Like, why do they want to watch this, and why now? Like, why is it important?
Yeah. And we talked about this a little bit. It's so important to get their attention right away. And in that first 30 seconds in that intro is very important to grab their attention. So I would love to, and we can talk about this later, we can put it in the show notes, but I would love to give your audience the same formula that I gave you for your intro. It's a 3-part formula, but it helps people hook your audience right away and build that instant trust. So it's one of our free things that we give away, and I'd love to give it to your audience too.
Yeah, that's great. So maybe we can go a little bit more in depth on it too. So you guys have to listen to this whole thing, because at the end, we're going to have Jonathan go a little bit more into depth into that formula and give you some massive value.
Yes.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's take a little bit of a transition. Jonathan, I want to talk about the leap moment. So you shared that your bold prayer, so asking God to push you out of your job, like if it was the right time. What was going through your mind, and tell me how you and your wife kind of processed it when you went from like your, I think was it 12 years in your position?
Yes. Yeah, a little over 12 years.
A little over 12 years.
Yeah.
And then you and your wife both stepped out into entrepreneurship.
Yes.
So walk us through whatever you want to share in that story. I mean, that's a bold leap. That's a big transformation.
It is. And so I might not have done this the right way, and we were a little crazy. We feel a little crazy at sometimes, but so we really felt like, I'll back it up a little bit. We really felt like that for 2 years, God was speaking to us, both of us, to start businesses, to be entrepreneurs. And I would, over the course of my entire life, I've tried to do, some side gigs here and there, but I worked for a nonprofit. I've always worked for nonprofits or churches. So they demand a lot of time. So it's really hard to start a side gig. I would say really probably for anybody, it's hard to start a side gig, but especially a job that's like demands your soul. We've been praying about it for really 2 years, and Penny had a job that really wasn't paying very much, and she decided, I'm going to start a job. I can make more. I'm going to start a business. I can make more doing this myself, right? And so she took the leap first, and it was an easy leap for us because, again, like she wasn't really. It was still challenging, but she wasn't getting paid very much. So it was like, if you don't, if this doesn't work out, it's fine. At least we got my salary, and so it went well for her. 3 or 4 months were great for her. But I still, in my devotional time, I still feel like God was still talking to me about going out there and doing something different. And I'm a faithful person. I've been at that job for 12 years. I'm very consistent. Again, that's my message. Consistency wins. But so I told God, I was like, God, you're going to have to, if you want me to do this, you're going to have to push me. Because I'm not going to go to my boss and say, hey, I'm thinking about, my plan was in my head to tell my boss, like, hey, I'm thinking about leaving in 6 months to a year to go start a business. Do you want to help me kind of with an exit strategy? But I couldn't even make that decision. I was like, I don't feel comfortable with that. God, I need you to, so I just prayed. I was like, I don't feel like I can make this leap on my own. God, I need you to push me. If this is you, figure out a way to, push me. Brad, literally 2 weeks later, they call me into the office and say, hey, Jonathan, we're going to have to let you go. With our new vision, your position is no longer needed. And it was funny on one hand, like super like, oh my gosh, God, really? Are you serious? And then at the same time, I was like devastated too, because, it's a job I've been at for 12 and a half years. So a lot of emotions, but at the same time, I was just like, oh my gosh, God, you answered my prayer and you pushed us. And so I told my wife, and she was excited too, because she knew it was the right thing. But then she was like, this is where I said I probably did it wrong. She was like, I think you should talk to me next time before you tell God something like that. Like, we should be in agreement.
That's good. That's
It's like,
good.
okay, maybe. But then the second time we were kind of faced with that was immediately I started looking for jobs, which is strange, but I felt like I needed that safety net, right?
Yeah.
Because here we were both starting brand new businesses. And that's a lot. I don't know if I'm sure a lot of our audience has been there before and they know what starting a new business is like, but we didn't have a safety net. Like, it's just both of us like starting a business. I had a little bit of severance from there. So I had a few months of safety net, but not enough to get a business going. So I started looking for jobs, and I had a couple people speak into my life. And then I really had a God moment where I felt like God was like, this is not what I pushed you out of that other business to do, is to look for another job. You were supposed to dive into the entrepreneurship thing. So I actually had a friend of mine who's now my business partner. He'd been asking me, when do you want to go into business together and do this other thing? And I was like, I kept putting him off because I was looking for jobs. And and when God told me that, I was like, nope. I called him up and I was like, dude, are you serious? You really want to do this? And he was like, yes, absolutely. And I'm like, all right, let's go. So
Wow.
then we jumped into the podcasting thing full time.
That's incredible. What a neat story, man. I love the part of your wife asking you to talk to her before you pray a bold prayer to God.
Again, I don't know. Maybe every situation is different. Maybe,
Yeah. So pressing into that for a second, what rhythms or systems helped you guys stay grounded during that season? So wife's a brand new entrepreneur. You stepped out to be an entrepreneur. What were some of the, you're all about consistency and probably like rhythms and patterns in a world of kind of new chaos that you created. Like, entrepreneurship is not an easy linear road, right? Like, you're just jumping in the deep end. So what were the things that you kept in your life that helped you stay focused and grounded?
Well, that's good, Brad. Thank you. You're exactly right. And I had no idea how chaotic running a business or entrepreneurship and starting businesses is. I just, my wife, again, like my wife and I had done a little bit on the side here and there, but when we jumped in, we're like, oh my gosh, there's so much we don't know, and schedules are all over the place. I've been going to a job for 12 years. And so, like you said, I am very consistent. I do have I get up at this time, and then I exercise, and then I spend some time with God, and then and so very rhythmic. So it's been a journey, honestly, of refiguring that out, learning how to live in rhythms and be flexible at the same time. My wife is definitely she's like super flexible. Like, right. It's like she can let's do this. No, let's do this. No, let's do this. And I'm super structured. So she's helping me. I'm helping her. be more structured when it comes to business, and she's helping me be more flexible. So it's great. It's really fun that we get to do that together. But I think one thing that we've held on to answer your question, that God spoke to her early on, is she was reading about the Israelites one day and how God brought them out of Egypt, and then they went through the wilderness and then the promised land. So we talked about that, and we really feel like we were in Egypt. She had a job that she was just overloaded and stressed in. I had a job that I had been at for 12 years, but I knew God was hardening my heart towards it and being like, this isn't your place anymore. And it's a job. And as entrepreneurs, we recognize that as slavery, right? Like it feels almost like slavery. So I don't want to be that harsh against jobs, because there may be, there's people out there with jobs and it's great. And that's where God has you right now, and go for it. And I loved my job when I had it. So, but I'm just telling you where we were at. So we pictured Egypt as slavery. Like that's where we were. That's where we're at. We can see the promised land. We're not at the promised land yet, but we can see it. It's in the distance. We know what God's telling us to do. But right now we're in the wilderness, right? And so we started like digging into, well, what does it mean to be in the wilderness? And really it's trusting in God.
Yeah.
Israelites it's a different kind of trust. I've always trusted in God, but Israelites have to daily trust in God for that bread, right? For those meals to come in. God wanted him to trust them daily. And so that's kind of where we're at. We're like, okay, we just have to believe that God's going to supply our needs every single day. We're going to have to believe that God's going to give us business ideas, tax, relationships every single day. It's just a new trust in God. And then we're going to fight. And then the second part of that, so trusting in God, then the second part of that is fighting the temptation to be whiny, like the Israelites were sometimes in the wilderness, wanting to go back to the 9 to 5, wanting to be back in slavery, fighting against that, remembering that it's slavery, remembering where God brought us from, and fighting against whining and not to say that we win every day, because sometimes I'm like, God, oh my gosh, what are you doing? But definitely trying to quickly realize where we're at and what God's doing, and just trust him that he's got it taken care of. So yeah, that's something that we've really held on to. It's helped us like stay grounded and focused.
Yeah, that's so good. So when we talk about Israelites in the wilderness, how does that story shape the way you would say lead your business and your family today? So what does like not going back to Egypt look like for you in 2025? What are some of the things that you guys are believing for?
Well, I love that you talked about family, because I think for us, that's the vision. That's the goal that God's given us. Like, it's not necessarily a financial goal, although we want our businesses to take care of our family and provide for our family. But our goal is to be an example for our kids. We have one really entrepreneurial kid, and a couple of the other ones are we just want to be a good example for what you can do and what you can accomplish, and how to just let go of the reins and trust God to lead you in the right direction, right? And so for us, that really looks like just a lot of open communication with our family. And we've just been really honest with them, with the kids, of, hey, we're just believing in God, and we're just praying every day that he leads us in the right way. And it may mean selling our house. It may mean doing this or doing that just to make everything work. But we're just going to lean in and listen to God and figure out what he has for us.
Yeah, man, that's so good. So you talk about the more that you know yourself, the better. What do you think is one thing you've learned about yourself recently that's helped you lead stronger, whether that is like your family or in business?
Oh, that's good. Let me think about that. Something that I'm learning right now, and I kind of mentioned it a little bit. Well, we should always be learning more about ourselves and learning more about leadership or whatever our industry is, all of those types of things, obviously. But one of the things I'm learning right now is how to listen to God. I think I was telling my wife this morning, I was like, if I could go back and tell myself one thing, it would be that this journey that we're on with God is just that, a journey. And you're not going to know. I've been saved since I was a little kid, right? But I am still learning things today. And I feel like sometimes in life, we feel like we should know it all. We should know everything that there is to the Bible and have all the correct theological answers. But I don't think that that's how God plans it or wants it to be. I'm learning that this is a growing relationship with God. Like you're always like learning and figuring out and growing closer to him. And that's what he wants. He wants you to continue to talk to him and come closer to him. And he's going to give you a little bit more what you can handle at one time, you know? And I was in a church for several years as a leader and on staff. And definitely like in those positions, you feel like you should know everything, right? I should know everything. But that was like 15 years ago, and I still don't know everything. And I learned so much when I left there, and I've learned so much in the past few months, past few weeks, days. I mean, God just keeps revealing, you know, more and more. And I think it's an ongoing, I think now my mindset is not that I know everything and to just let go and trust God and know that and be curious, you know, stay curious so that I can learn, keep learning and keep growing and not, because I think sometimes, especially as Christians, as conservatives, we're very like, this is the right way and there's no other way, right?
Yeah.
And me too, you know, I'm consistent, faithful. But I've got to, you know, realize that I don't know everything and I need to stay open and curious and keep learning. And that's fun. And it's fun to grow and learn and explore new things. As long as you're staying connected to God, you know, don't go out there and go explore some weirdness. But
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Man, that's good. So coming back to and we'll eventually wrap up with kind of some personal growth tips, but I'd love to go back to some of the podcasting tips. So for folks maybe thinking about doing a podcast, or maybe they have a podcast and they're just getting burned out, like, I have no listeners, I don't know if I'm doing it right. Like, what would be some practical advice? Like if someone's on the fence, maybe let's say of like starting a podcast, and they're like, Jonathan, I feel like I've got this burning desire inside of me to get a message out, and I feel like podcast might be the right thing, but I'm a little nervous because I don't know if I've got all the right equipment, or I don't really know what I'm doing, or if it's going to succeed or fail. Help someone untangle that if they're maybe thinking that in their head. What would you tell them?
I would say do it. Start where you're at. You might need to find out a little bit more about podcasting, or, you know, talk to someone like me and get some strategy around it. But I would just say start, you know, because I run into people all the time that make up excuses for why they don't get started in podcasting. And it's one of the easiest like things to get started in, and you don't need the best equipment, like humble beginnings, right? So that podcast we started at zero with, we started in just a tiny room and we had just a couple little mics. We hung up these ugly blankets to help with sound, and they did not do video at all. They were just on these couple little mics, and they were just crowded around these couple little mics talking. And I don't think we even did video until like year 2. And even then, like, it was very simple. One camera. We pulled up this, you know, those photography backgrounds. We had like a pink sheet behind them because their brand was pink. And
Yeah.
they were at like one of our conference tables that we use. Like we would just pull it in there, put a couple mics on it. So I say all that to say, like, it doesn't have to be perfect at the beginning. You could start small, start with a cheap mic, start with your, today I'm using my phone as my camera. So there's some ways to get around it. Is it work? Yes, podcasts are work, and they do take time. Like I said, they take time to grow, but you can grow with it. And you grow as a podcaster, you grow as an individual, because the whole process of podcasting helps you learn more about your own field too. Like then you're like, if you're sharing about your stuff, then you're kind of getting that. If you have to do a podcast, then you're like, how can I say this? It's like you're like getting it into your head and organizing it better so that you can share it out, right? And so the whole process of a podcast helps you get better at communicating your message overall. People are like, I don't know if I have it all together to get started. Or like you said, like if you've just started and like this is a hard road to go on. Yes, it's a hard road, but don't stop, because if you keep going, that's when you're gonna see growth. But if you stop, then you're gonna have to start all over again. So, and people are like, well, it takes podcasts a long time to grow. I don't know if I want to get into it. Well, then I say, well, then start now. Like, you know, like to me, I just hear, well, you just need to get started, because if you don't start, then it's going to take even longer to grow. And yes, there's a lot of podcasts out there. I get all the time. And I feel like it's an excuse that people use. They're like, oh, there's a lot of voices out there. I don't, you know, if I want to, somebody else is already saying this, nobody will care about what I have to say, or that kind of thing, or, you know, all of these things. And I have two things to say about that. One is there's a lot of businesses out there too, right? But you like if you're listening to this podcast, you made the leap probably to start a business. You're diving in there. There's a lot of people that do. There's a lot of people that do chiropractor. There's a lot of people that work on automobiles. There's a lot of people that do podcasting. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of people that do marketing, but that didn't stop you because you have a unique voice. God gave you a unique message. God gave you a unique voice. And if it's on your heart, like Brad said, if it's something that's like burning in your heart, you got to get it out there. And podcasting is a great way, an easy way to start to get that message out there. The second thing I would say about that is there are 4.4 million podcasts right now in the whole entire world. Think that's not oversaturated. But one thing you need to know about podcasting is that there are only actually like a little over 600,000 podcasts that are active. So the pool is a lot smaller. It's not as big as you think it is. And then you go niche down to your specific industry or your specific category, as they're called in podcasting, and it's even smaller. So there's room for you. And if God's laid that message on your heart, if you feel like you need to get it out there, or if you feel like this is a great way to help promote your business and bring people in, then get started. Just get started.
What are your thoughts on, obviously we're doing video here. Would you recommend someone starting off going to kind of video and audio or sticking with just audio? What are your thoughts on to start?
So we always talk to people about their goals first. And I want to talk about this a little bit. Goals are so important and they should drive your decision making when it comes to a podcast. Don't just jump into a podcast because your friend told you that you should do a podcast. I like your voice. But you need to have a goal in mind. Like, what is your goal? And then you put that in front of you. And then that should help you make all the decisions that you make, right? So I would say with video, it depends on your goal. You don't need video for a podcast. There are a lot of podcasts out there that started audio only, and audio only is still the main method that podcasts are being consumed, is just by listening. Even the video podcast, I would argue that most people that listen to video podcasts start the video podcast and then minimize it if it's on their computer or set their phone down. They're not even intently watching it if it's a podcast, if it's a true podcast. So video is becoming more important and is becoming a thing in podcasting, but I definitely, if you're not comfortable with it, if you're not ready for it, if it's not part of your goal, then don't start there. Now, a plus of doing video, and Brad knows this well, is shorts. So you can cut shorts from it and put them on your Instagram or your Facebook or whatever, LinkedIn, so that's a plus of having the video content, and people can see your face and people connect because that's how God created us. When they see you, they're going to connect faster than when they just hear you, and trust is going to be built faster. But still, podcasts are like the number one way to gain trust, and even just listening to someone will create that bond. I say it kind of really depends on where you're at and what your goal is. But there are definitely advantages to having video, but I wouldn't say when it comes to growing your podcast it's not necessary. I told Brad this the other day, but a lot of people look at top podcasts like oh my gosh, why do I forget his name? Yeah, Joe Rogan. Sorry, Joe Rogan. I forgot your name all of a sudden.
He's obviously listening to this, so we need to make sure we call him out.
Sorry, Joe Rogan. Thanks for listening. But they look at him and see like that he's big on YouTube. And then they say he's got a big podcast, he's got a big YouTube following. And they think that those two, for a while, a lot of people have argued that those two correlate. So if I'm on a podcast and I want a big podcast, then I need to be on YouTube as well. And I need to have a video podcast on YouTube, and that'll grow my podcast. Well, there have been recent studies done and research and revealed that those two don't correlate. There are people out there with big podcasts and no video and no YouTube channel at all. A lot of times what you're seeing is just someone that is a big personality, and they've grown a big podcast and they've grown a big YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is not growing their podcast. The podcast not growing their YouTube channel. They've just grown both. And you can do that, and that's fine. And you can grow both, but they are two very different platforms still.
Yeah, man, that's really interesting. That's good. So let's kind of unlock the teaser that we gave at the beginning. If you want to go into maybe like some tips of the structure of a podcast. If someone's like, cool, I know I can just talk a lot and I'm passionate about a subject, like what are some of the formatting or framework that you recommend to help have a more successful podcast?
Yeah. Well, one of the top things is the intro, because you don't want people to listen for a second and be like, this is boring, I'm out of here. And so you get a little more grace on podcast than you do other channels. You've got mere seconds on YouTube and those places where people are just scrolling. On podcasts, they'll give you a little more time before they click out, but it's still just seconds that they'll give you before they're on to their next thing. Now, once you hook them, podcasts have way more retention rate. Like, people will listen a lot longer as long as you get them hooked at the beginning, because they're doing podcasts during an activity. A lot of times it's either like the top ones are like driving, fitness. So they're on the treadmill, or they're driving the car, or housework. A lot of people are listening to podcasts during housework, vacuuming, doing stuff like that. So those are really like the top three. So people are doing something. So once you hook them, then they put their phone in their pocket or set it somewhere where they're not going to skip and go to something else. So I think the intro is very important. And we've kind of come up with a 3-part framework that we do for the formula. And we call it, we use 3 Ps to make it fun. We call it promise, path, and proof. So promise is what they'll get. So you're telling them, hey, this is what you'll get if you listen to this episode. And again, like we said in the beginning, people want to know what they're going to get, what you're going to give them. So you're going to say, hey, today I'm going to give you the 3 tools to overcome whatever, just making something up, but you're promising them something in the intro. And then the path is how you'll get them there. And that's really where you would say like the 3 tools, like the path is my 3 best suggestions of whatever it is, and then the proof is, so you got promise, path, and proof. And the proof is why you're the one to trust. You're like, and I did this in my business. Or you say, and I helped, like for me, I helped a podcast go from 0 to 1 million downloads with this exact strategy, or something like that. So you're giving them proof of why you're the person they can trust and listen to. And don't make something up. It needs to be real. It could be similar every time, because every time, you're telling them, and this is the reason why to listen to me. So promise, path, and proof. And if you want the whole like framework formula, and I do like a little like plug and play type intro, then you can go to, we'll put the link in the description and you can go and grab that. But I think my biggest tip with that is, don't do your intro at the beginning of your recording. Do the intro when you're done. Especially if you're doing an interview, Brad, especially if you're interview format, do the intro after you're done, because you don't really know what content is going to come out of that interview. You might have an idea, but you don't really know what that promise, path, and proof is going to be until you've talked to that person. And even if you're doing a solo where you're just talking to the camera, you don't 100% know, because something might come out of you that surprised you. So you're going to want to think through that episode and be like, what was the meat? What was the best part? What was something that my audience is really going to love? And then that becomes your promise. And then you can build that after the episode is done. So immediately after the episode's done, you think through that, you create your intro, and then you do it. And then in editing, you take that and you put that at the beginning, and then you go into your episode. So that's my number 1 tip, and what we did all the time when we had our podcast networks, and what we do with clients, because you're going to get a way better hook intro out of that than just like trying to come up with it off the fly and jump right in.
I think you'd be proud of me, Jonathan. So the last few, I've actually done that. I've listened to the whole thing. I found the hook. I cut it. I moved it to the beginning. And it's funny. And you guys that are listening, I want you to start thinking through this as you're listening to other podcasts. You'll be able to spot the ones that do that really well, right? You jump into the episode, and it's like, hey, on today's episode, we're going to learn the 5 things to accomplish X without the pain of Y. And then we're going to give you this at the very end. So stay tuned. And then it cuts to, fun music. Welcome to the XYZ podcast, which are already kind of baited on the hook of like, oh, cool. This is what you talked about at the beginning. This is like, what's in it for me? I'm actually going to stay and listen because I'm curious. My mind is engaged. Like, I've got to know these things. And if I end early, I'm not going to get them. And I don't think it's ever for tricking people. It's how you're bringing people along for the ride when you're positioning yourself as the guide and the expert, and you're delivering some valuable information that's going to help someone solve a problem. Let's tell them right up front, here's the problem we're going to solve today. Listen, I'm going to tell you how we solve it.
That's a good point. I think hook, the word hook, especially, if you're a Christian or, a believer or something, you might be like turned off and it might have a bad connotation to it. We're just trying to hook people and trick them, but this isn't like bait and switch. We're not like talking about like baiting and switching here. We're talking about actually just communicating up front what they're going to get and how this podcast is going to help them. And it's just a necessary thing in our culture today because people are busy and there's so many other things that they could listen to or be doing. And so what's in it for me is a real question that people are constantly thinking when they hit play or when they're scrolling through their videos or
Yeah.
podcasts or things. So you really have to be able to hook them and get them to listen.
We need to come up with a better word for hook. That'll be a
Yes.
side project we do. We're going to come up with the Christian version of hook.
I mean, Jesus was a fisher of men, right?
Hey, that popped into my head too. Yeah.
Maybe we just say net. How do you net
There you
your
go.
audience? No, that's
It
weird.
doesn't have the same, it's not as catchy though,
No.
We got to make it have that little ring to it. But it's funny because you and I, like, we don't have the luxury of time just to be randomly listening to podcasts and then come to find out at the end of like, oh, like I didn't really get anything out of it. That was a good 30, 45 hour long. So you're actually being really kind to your audience by letting them know what you're discussing. And that probably goes into the title too, right? Like making sure the title and
Yes.
description of your podcast is very similar to that, the word
Yes.
formerly known as hook.
Yeah, and if we have time, I could briefly talk about titles, but they're changing. The podcast industry is changing. It's becoming a lot more searchable. So titles and descriptions are becoming a lot more important. Used to, podcasts could get away with, really, they didn't have to do a fancy title because once you're into a podcast, it's like you're in the club and you're just listening to them. And so people would use like titles that are inside jokes, like that you would only know if you were part of the podcast. So, and they would do like really cute and things. Well, that is going to have to go away because now you need to be searchable, to be findable, and to grow, you're going to have to use more titles like YouTube. It's going to YouTubey, where you're actually putting that hook in the title.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. So you guys that are listening to this, pay attention to the title. We don't know what the title of this one's going to be yet, but it's going to be really good. And we're going to have a really good hook on the beginning of this podcast too.
We are. It's going to be great.
Because Jonathan is gonna help me here. So Jonathan, we'll put the link, guys, in show notes if you want some more tips on like just what to do with your podcast. Jonathan runs an amazing business. He actually helps like faith-based entrepreneurs that are doing a podcast and be their coach, which I love. It's such a strong niche. We're working together. It's been amazing. And so I would just say, like, if you want a trusted resource to be your guide along this journey and you're trying to explore a podcast, I'm really excited about podcasts because I feel like long form, high value content, it's not just a scroll on social. It's things that people are engaging in. They're a little bit more loyal. I've heard, I need to fact check this, but I've heard too, just like that, basically the types of people that listen to podcasts, they are the ones, if they're getting up early to work out or they're commuting or they're doing housework, they're usually, people that aren't afraid of doing hard things. They're putting in the work. Some might say they're higher income earners, they're higher impact people. And if that's your audience, that's where you want to be. You don't want to go for just only social. It's like the quick scroll, quick dopamine hit, on to the next, unloyal. It's like, what's in it for me within 2 seconds? And then even if you have something valuable, we're still on to the next. And I feel like, I don't know about for you, but I know for me, the podcast I listen to, I'm engaged. It's high value. I'm a lot more loyal. I'm not just using it like a search engine of how do I fix my broken sink? Find a YouTube. I believe like it's a great place to plant your brand and grow your voice and have a long-term growth strategy, not just a short-term dopamine hit for somebody else.
And the crazy thing about it is by creating that long-term content, that long-form content, you can break it up and use it for all of those other quick scroll things that you're doing. So it kind of gives you both, the best of both worlds. But I totally agree with you, Brad. You told me that the other day about people that are improving themselves are going to be listening to podcasts. And I was like, oh, that's so true. I hadn't really I'm going to have to dig into that statistic too, because I bet there's some more to that.
Yeah, definitely need to dig into that. That'd be interesting to see the trend over time too. So let's kind of wrap it up here. I know we've gone a little bit long, but man, thank you, Jonathan, for providing such incredible value to our listeners. If someone's listening to the show and maybe they're standing at the edge of their own leap, whether that's in their family, in their finances, in their business, maybe it's like an endurance event. What would you tell them to encourage them to go all in?
Man, I would say listen to this podcast, one, and listen to Brad because he's so encouraging. He has been encouraging even in my life of just do it. Just take that leap. Just go for it. Especially, talk to God, talk to your wife. And then if
Maybe
both of
reverse
those are
order.
in agreement, then just go for it, then just do it and just trust God that he's going to take care of you.
Yeah, well said. I had a business coach once that he had us think about like worst case scenario. It's like, guys, what's the worst that's going to happen? Like, look at, granted, if you're in the United States or you're in a good place, like we've got so much good things around us that we don't realize. It's like, really, what's the worst thing? What's the worst case scenario that could happen? And we're talking about, you're taking a jump into doing a podcast, starting a business, pursuing something you love. Your worst case scenario is probably not as bad as what your brain is telling yourself. So just explore that, like write down on a piece of paper, like what's actually the worst thing that could happen? And then write down like, what's the best thing that could happen? And then it's up to you to make that decision. Like, is it worth the leap? What happens if you hit all those goals? What would your life look like? And, visualize what that could feel like. And it may not be worth it, but what if it is? And what if you miss that opportunity? You never take the leap and you just stay stuck.
That's good. That's really good. That's really good advice. I think my wife and I have done that practice several times since starting these businesses. Like,
Yeah.
okay, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah. It's funny because we don't really let our minds play that out very often, right? We kind of have this fake level. It's like a false level of, things are going to fall apart. It's going to be crazy. Like, what's life going to look like? But we don't let our minds explore. Well, let's pause there and go deeper. Like, what would actually happen? Like, would it be that bad? Like, do we have someone that could bail us out? Do we have a couch we could sleep on? Imagine what we'd learn in that journey along the way.
Yeah. 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 For us, like the backup plan was, hey, we'll just sell the house and move into an RV and travel the country. That's not terrible. Like, that's amazing.
It's like, actually, let's just do that. Let's just go right to that level. I've tried with my wife a couple times. I'm like, hey, would it be crazy if we just got like an Airstream? And then it was, you both have to be on board for that kind of life decision.
Yeah. 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 And if you have teenagers like us, it's, they gotta be on board too.
Yeah. Yep. I hear you. Well, Jonathan, in closing, any final words that you'd like to share with our guest today?
Yeah, I would just say, I love this podcast that you're starting, Brad. Thank you for letting me be on it. Believe in the leap because it's so important. And I would just tell, our audience, like when it comes to podcasting, if you're doing it or if you're thinking about starting it, just do it. I mean, just take that leap and go for it. Contact me if you need help, or if you need encouragement, listen to this podcast, but just take that leap, just go for it because there are so many good benefits of one, obeying God, and two, just podcasting in general.
Yeah. So good, man. I love it. Well, thanks for being on the show, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Guys, make sure to connect with Jonathan. You'll see information in the show notes where you can get a hold of him, get some free resources from him. We'll probably be doing some cool stuff in the future. We just did a live workshop together, so we'll probably be doing some more stuff. So just kind of be following both of us. If this sparked curiosity or interest in you, we'll be doing more cool stuff together. Make sure to follow him. And guys, if you know someone that is maybe on the edge of a leap and you feel like this would help them in their journey, give them the gift of sharing this to them. Let them listen to it. Sometimes I like to say the smallest hinges can swing the biggest doors. So that one gift, maybe it's not this podcast, maybe it's something else, but that one gift sometimes that you can give other people that can help them get unstuck. Maybe this wasn't for you. Maybe it was for someone else. Maybe it was for you and you need to take that leap. But share this, subscribe to this podcast if you want more of this. And I would love your 5-star reviews. If you guys liked what you heard today, that helps us so much grow this thing. Yeah, if you can just give it a 5-star review, share this with folks, and we will catch you guys on the next episode. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.